Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Well, hey there, poddies. This is exciting. Welcome to a brand new series on the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. For the next 3 Fridays, I am going to be delving into how you can make 2020 the very best year for your business. And there are some exciting changes coming up, and we're going to be covering off some really cool topics that I think I know are going to help you ultimately build and scale your business in 2020 so that you really can have the best year next year. So why do this? Why take away the normal guest episodes on a Friday in November? Well, here's the thing. Most people leave it to December to do their 2020 planning. And I feel like that leaves it too late. Because what happens is everyone gets into December, they're like, right, this is when I'm going to do my New Year planning. And then what inevitably happens is people have children, or they have Christmas parties they need to go to, or they have family or holidays. And so what actually happens is you end up creating your New Year plan basically in January. And that always is too late. You end up kind of having this weird week at the end of December when you finish eating mince pies and you're like, okay, right, probably need to do that planning thing now. And you get it together and it becomes really, really frustrating for you because you're thinking, well, now I'm having to sit and waste time over Christmas, over New Year, planning this out. And I wish that I'd actually taken some more time on it. I feel like I'm going into it a little bit, not half-hearted, but not necessarily with all the information and knowledge that I need. So that is what we're going to be covering. Next 3 Fridays, we're going to have different episodes to help you prep for 2020, to give you the best possible ideas to make your business or get your business into the best possible condition. So we're going to talk today about future-proofing your business. Next week, we're going to be talking about content mediums. And then the week after, we'll be talking about sales strategy. So do make sure that you tune into each episode because they are going to be really, really useful. I'm coming to this episode, I will have just finished almost a week in London with an amazing Evolve in-person day for my Evolvers, then a mastermind in-person day for my incredible private mastermind. I can't believe that we're almost at the end of 2019 mastermind. That's terrifying. And then I had my amazing 2-day Converting Corporates event. So I will be, whilst you are listening to this episode, probably in a hole somewhere, de-peopling and resting and watching Netflix. That's the hope anyway. Let's dive in and talk about future-proofing your business so that you can get your prep done for 2020. Now, I believe there are certain points that you have to think about and certain elements that you must take into consideration when it comes to future-proofing your business. So let's take a quick step back here and think about why we actually need to bother future-proofing. Now, I will say this as somebody who has been fortunate to break most of the odds running a business. You know, the average business, or I think the stat now is like 80% of businesses will fail in their first 3 years. And so if your business has made it more than 3 years, you know, that's really good. The success rate then increases exponentially. But when we actually look at how many people are successful, and I'm using air quotes there, when we look at how many people are successful in business, i.e. their business is their main source of revenue and is able to fund their lifestyle and be profitable and all that good stuff, actually the percentages are relatively small. And with women particularly, the percentage of women who will ever make £1 million or more in their business total, that's not an annual figure, is 1.7%. So it's very, very small. For men, it's actually about quadruple that. So congrats, guys, you're doing all the good stuff. But still, it's a low number. And if you look at that percentage when it comes to female-owned businesses who will ever make £100,000 or more, and again, that's not an annual figure, that's a total, it's less than 12% currently in the UK. Now, those stats scarily come from the Rose Review, which was a report that was done by a collaborative report done by a banking institution here in the UK and a specific entrepreneurial board that had been set up to look at some of the growth factors within small businesses, and specifically female-owned small businesses this year. There are some actually really interesting reports if you want to go and look and dig into the stats even further. American Express did a really great report. The Rose Review had a really great report. And also the Bank of England had a really great report as well. So if you are interested in looking up the success rates of small business ownership in the UK, those are the places that I would hit up immediately. But back to future-proofing. Why bother? Well, if we look at the stats like that, obviously it does mean that there is a likelihood, there is a higher potential that we may fail than we want. And when we are in such a changeable landscape, I speak on behalf of the UK when I say, who knows, Brexit. And when we're in that changeable landscape, it's very, very difficult to plan anything. You know, one of the biggest industries to be hit with the political changes this year has been the travel industry, because people aren't spending as much on travel. They don't know whether they're going to be able to get back in the country. They don't know whether they're going to have to pay more for it suddenly. They don't know what's going to happen with Brexit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So people just aren't. And as a result, you know, the UK saw one of its main travel organizations go bust. And that's quite scary for people. So when we're talking about small businesses, we have to make sure that we are planning for the future. We're planning for the eventualities. And I know that sounds scary, but here's the thing. It's much scarier to go into it eyes shut and just assume I'm going to manifest a better result, or I'm just going to think about how it's all going to be fine. When you plan for a potentially challenging situation, it's not looking at the situation and saying, oh, well, this is definitely going to happen. You know, I should definitely focus on the negative. I should only think that my business is going to fail. It's looking at it in an objective way and not letting the negative stuff scare you, but actually thinking about, okay, so in the event that this did happen, what would I do? What would I be able to control? What would be the mitigating factors that would help me stay in business? What would help me gain more market share? What would help me do those things that are so important to keeping your business running, keeping it thriving, keeping it profitable amidst all of the economical and political turmoil that's going on at the moment? So that's what we're covering off today. And there are just a few things. This isn't an episode where I'm going to be like, right, you must do X and Y and Z. It's going to be me posing a lot of questions to you, really, for you to think about, okay, A, do I have the answers to these? B, if I don't, then I need to go off and actually think about them. And C, helping you plan ahead. These are the questions that I've asked myself every year in business. And it's how I've lasted 5 years, and I am relatively OG in this world, which is a scary thought sometimes, I think. But I want you to be asking yourself the questions so that you can give yourself the opportunity to find the answers and actually go out and get the plan that you need so you can take 2020 by storm. So it's not anything to be scared about. It's not anything to be like, oh my God, this is going to be super complex and really hard. It's just, I want you to be aware. I want you to go into 2020 eyes wide open. We've talked a lot about the landscape this year, how the business landscape is changing, how the online business landscape is changing. And these are the key questions that you're going to need to ask yourself, or the key things that you're going to need to think about so you can plan to have a really, really superb year next year, regardless of what happens economically, politically, all that good stuff. So the first thing that we have to think about, and I do this every year, is the first question I ask myself is, am I happy? Am I happy? And I don't look just at my business for this. I look overall. Am I happy with my life? Am I happy with who I'm spending time with? Am I happy with the relationships that I've made over the last year? Am I happy with how I show up and become visible? Am I happy with how I stand in line with my moral compass? those things are really important to me. And I think it's interesting. I literally today, as I'm recording this episode, I was scrolling the Facebook newsfeed this morning, because at 6:30 a.m. when you wake up early, that is of course what you do. And I was scrolling it and I saw a post from, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, that got a lot of traction, and people were sort of commenting and saying, fortunately somebody else yet again had been screwed over by a coach, and the coach was then refusing to do anything about screwing them over. The person paid a lot of money for a result and didn't get the coaching that they felt was necessary to help them get to that point. And it was an example again of somebody overselling and under delivering, and that's really unfortunate. And I see more and more of it. It's one of the reasons that I do try and stay away from the Facebook newsfeed, if I'm honest, because it all gets a little bit murky, a little bit depressing. But the most depressing thing on there was not that somebody had been screwed over. That was terrible. And I never weighed in on these things, because I find that if people want advice, they will come and ask me about it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt me that our industry screws people over. However, the saddest thing on there was then the amount of people commenting, yeah, and I really hate it when coaches talk about integrity, because if you have to talk about having integrity, then you probably don't have any. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, like, I had this moment of thinking, oh my God, do I need to talk less about integrity? And I thought, no, because the reality is, you can go two ways with this. One is there's no smoke without fire. If you have to talk about it all the time, you probably don't have it. But talking about it and showing up and doing the thing and demonstrating you have integrity, they can go together hand in hand quite nicely, So if you've been impacted by that this year, if you're thinking, oh my God, my moral compass, have I shown up in line with it? And you've been talking about integrity and loyalty and honesty and all these kinds of things, and then you've been seeing these things happen, don't worry. Continue to talk about it. It's fine. It's not that people don't believe you, because if you can back it up with your actions, then you're going to be just fine. But that's the first question to ask yourself is, am I happy? And you look at your life and you look at your finances and relationships and things. And then the second place that you apply that to is your business. Am I happy? And I always ask myself, a few key questions there. One is, am I happy? Do I like my business? Is it lighting me up? Do I get excited still to sit down at the podcast mic? Yes. Is it still useful? Is it still profitable? Am I still enjoying the clients that I work with? Am I still happy with how I have to show up? And I also look at, the kind of key things there around, it's not necessarily just enough to be happy with your business. It also has to be profitable. Is it profitable? Is it doing what it needs to do to function as a business, i.e. not a very expensive hobby that I'm just paying out loads of money on and not making anything in return? So I look at, am I happy? And then I look at, am I profitable? And then I look honestly at, am I hitting my goals? Now, it's interesting because every year I tend to do a roundup, and I'm quite honest on the show about numbers and things like that. And I did a roundup last year of how the business had gone. And I usually do it in January, early February, because by that time I've been able to see like a full calendar year, and we've done all the reporting and all this stuff. But those are the questions you have to ask yourself first before you do anything else, before you think about any changes you want to make. You have to get really, really honest and really, really objective. This year, there were some things in my personal life that I wasn't happy with. And did I necessarily action all of them? No. Did some of them get action for me? Yes. Am I grateful for that? Yes, 100%. Even though I may not have been at the time. It's the same when you look at your business. You have to step back. You have to be honest and objective at this point. It's not enough to just go, well, I'm helping people, so it's fine that I'm not making money. I'm helping people, so it's fine that me and my husband argue, or me and my wife argue every single weekend because we have no money. Get really objective. It's not about getting negative. There's a very big difference between objectively looking at your business and saying, okay, the plus points are these, the obstacles I'm currently facing or challenges I'm facing are these, okay? Don't sit there and go, well, it doesn't make any money, so I hate it, and I must just be awful, and I'm just crap at business, and da da da. Look at it and say, okay, let's dig in. Why has this not happened? Why did I face this challenge? What have I learned? from that experience. So once we've looked at, are we happy? The next biggest thing we have to look at is clarity on, once we've got this objective perspective, are we happy? Are we doing what we want to do? Are we making money? We have to look at, are we actually selling what we really want to deliver? Now, this is always an interesting question. And about, I would say 3 years ago, was it 3 years ago? Maybe 2. Everything merges into one. Am I right? But I had this thing about 3 years ago where I suddenly realized I just didn't want to teach the basics anymore. It wasn't that I didn't care. It was just that I didn't want to. I was making a lot of money doing it, how to do a lead magnet, how to do a this, and how to use Canva and all this kind of stuff. But I was selling stuff I didn't really want to deliver. I didn't really want to talk about every single free tool on the market that you could use for email autoresponders. And, I didn't really want to talk about how to use all the differences between Canva and PicMonkey and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't because I didn't think it was valuable for my audience. It was just because I was selling something I didn't want to deliver anymore. I was bored. It wasn't lighting me up. I was just kind of like, well, it's fine, whatever. And again, if you bring that back down to happiness, does it make you happy? No. It's interestingly, I kind of think about those people who have become business coaches because they're like, oh, business coaches make more money. And then they end up selling business coaching, and actually selling business coaching is A, really hard, and B, quite challenging to deliver. And so they end up becoming these business coaches, and their mind inside all the time, they come to me on discovery calls, these people, and they're like, oh my God, I'm selling business coaching, but I feel like a fraud because I don't have a successful business. Or I feel like a fraud because I'm not making the money that the people who come to me want to make. Or, I find it really challenging because I'm teaching people how to do something, but I'm not doing it myself. And that ties back into that moral compass piece. It ties back into your own integrity, it ties back into your own motivation, right? But you have to be assessing what you're currently selling and whether it's what you actually want to deliver and whether it's actually what you're qualified to deliver. So if you've spent this year, listening to business coaches and being told, oh, you should go and sell this, you should go and sell that. And, actually you've been thinking, oh, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I am the best placed person. It's okay to let somebody else have that. That's a lesson that I learned this year. I talked to my coach about this, Ali Brown. And we were talking about this when I was making the decision to shut down my membership. And it was really hard. It was really hard for me because I said to Ali, I'm kind of torn between two sides of myself. The side of myself that says, I don't want to do the basics anymore. I don't want to teach the basics. But there's this other part of me that says, if I'm not teaching it, somebody else is going to be, and the likelihood is they don't have the same integrity as I do. And that's going to be a real challenge. And she said to me, but here's the thing, Jess, there are so many other people in the world that are good at that perhaps aren't known at the moment. And you're not letting people go to kind of feed them to the sharks. You're letting them go to do their own due diligence and find for themselves the best resources next time. You can't take that responsibility. That was really refreshing for me. It really helped solidify that I am not responsible for every single person in the online business space. And although that sounds awful, like it was a weight that had been on my shoulders for quite a long time. Like I was saying earlier about this post, I get really upset when people get screwed over by coaches. I get really upset when my clients come to me and say, I don't want to be called a coach because we're in an unregulated industry and there's so much bad press about it. Those things frustrate me and upset me just as much as anybody else, but I don't weigh in on every discussion because it would just give my energy and feed a fire instead of actually changing it. Changing it comes with taking the action. And for me, that action was, I have to sit in my integrity. And if I'm selling something that I am not enjoying delivering anymore, that doesn't make me the best person to deliver it anymore. So you have to leave that opportunity for somebody else, right? Then we have to look at the kind of practical piece around future-proofing your business. And that is, look at what worked and look at what didn't. This is always interesting to me. People always assume that everything that I touch turns to gold. I laugh slightly manic there because I'm like, I've had more failed launches than most people have had launches total. And I'm okay with that. Not every failed launch, by the way, is a launch that makes zero. You know, some failed launches are things that you spend more on the front end on, and, you know, don't necessarily break even, or you do a joint venture and the other person ends up not pulling their weight for the 6 months of the course that you decide to run. There are lots of different things that mean failure. It's not just revenue. But I think we have to look honestly and objectively about why something hasn't worked. It's not just enough to go, okay, what didn't work in my business? Okay, you know, turns out YouTubing wasn't for me. This year, I fully intended, I had every intention of getting on video. I even bought a gimbal. I didn't even know what one was, but I bought a gimbal. I was like fully intending to do some behind the scenes videos. I was going to, you know, do more on Instagram, like all this kind of stuff. Yeah, no, it didn't work. It didn't work because I didn't do enough of it to make it successful. I don't actually think I even made one video, which I'm okay with, actually. But it's a massive failure. It was definitely on my goals list. I definitely didn't do it. But why didn't it work? Well, it didn't work because I didn't do it. I didn't take enough action. I didn't invest enough time. I didn't create the content. There were lots of reasons. But then I could also look at other things that didn't work. I could look at, for me, I could look at launches that, I don't know, that just didn't light me up in the same way. In fact, one of the things for me that I assessed in 2018 was the fact that we'd run cash creation 4 times that year. And it was a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I love it, but it's a lot of work. And when I looked back at what worked, what didn't, it was one of the things on my this did not work list, because I felt overwhelmed by the amount of marketing that we'd done for it and the amount of delivery that I'd had to do for it, and the emotional weight of that, and how draining that was to do it 4 times in 1 year. So that's why in 2019, I looked at, okay, well, that didn't work for me. Running it 4 times in a year did not work for me. So what will work for me? And this year we ran it once in February, and it was great. You know, we had some really great people involved, but 2018 was so painful. Not painful in that I loved working with all of the participants on cash creation. That bit really lit me up, but it was just the rest of it for me didn't. It was draining. It was hard work. It didn't feel effortless. You know, your business doesn't always feel effortless anyway. I'm the first person to say that, but you have to look at some of the practicalities, and some of it should feel easier. And it just didn't, because I was running it so often. It was hard. The other interesting thing was the way that we marketed it in 2019 was different. One of the things I found about a couple of the rounds in 2018 was that when we were launching it, people were coming to us and asking if the course could save them. Oh my God, if I spend the £1,000 on this course, can you guarantee me that I'm going to make 10,000 back, that I'm going to be one of the super success stories? And that's a lot of pressure. It's one of the reasons that when people come to me and they say, oh, I'm just going to be a business coach, I'm just going to be a sales coach, and they don't necessarily know how to do those things, I'm like, it's not that I don't want you to do it because I'm worried about competition. It's because there's not only a lot of practical information involved, but also there's a lot of responsibility. When you're a sales coach, or when you sell making money, there is a lot of emotional responsibility. I've definitely had sleepless nights every year that I've been in business where I'm like, oh my goodness, this person just is not getting it. And I don't know why. And it's not because my stuff doesn't work. It's not because, you know, they don't have a great idea. Sometimes it's that they haven't done the work. Sometimes it's that they refuse to do the work. Sometimes they don't learn. And sometimes, you know, there's like a 0.15% of people who it was just harder for them. It didn't not ever happen, but they had to work hard for a long time to get the results that other people got a lot quicker. And it wasn't fair. And I would have sleepless nights. I'd be like, oh my God, why is this person still having to work so hard and only making like $2,000 a month? That's not fair. So if you're selling making money, or you're selling sales or business growth, just be aware of that responsibility, please. Take responsibility. You know, you can't take responsibility for people who don't do the work. That's on them. And I've had plenty of those over the last 5 years. And actually 2019, I've seen a rise of people who A, don't do the work, and B, blame you for not doing the work. I'll talk about that sometime else. But here's the thing, you know, you have to really look at your business. If you want to future-proof it, you have to be really honest. What worked, what did not? And that comes down to practical. Did it work in terms of revenue or visibility, market share, learning and development? Also in terms of, did I enjoy it? You know, did I like it? Was it a huge emotional investment? Was it emotionally draining, etc.? So look at those things and be honest with yourself about why something doesn't work. I sat in 2017. There was a corporate contract. There was a corporate firm that wanted me to go in and do some consulting with them. And I very, very rarely do it because I, at that time, was focused on building my online brand and really focusing here in this online space, growing my business, growing my revenue here, my market share. And they approached me and said, oh, Jess, we'd like to do this thing. And because they'd approached me, I was a bit lazy with it. Like, I didn't necessarily do the normal things I would have done. I asked them about timeframes, and I asked them about budget. That was good. But, you know, I was kind of like, I forgot to ask the really good question, which is always, are you considering anyone else this opportunity? As a result, anyway, I did not necessarily get the amount of business. I still got some business from them, but I didn't get the amount of business that I could have had I asked that question. And I had to be really honest with myself. It wasn't anyone else's fault, it was mine. I did not ask the question. Normally I would have. On that day, I was lazy. I was, so focused on the online stuff that I didn't think about it. And I dropped the ball on that. That was in 2017. I still remember it. It's just as painful to me today as it was then. You can say that I am good at being self-critical, but you've got to seriously start thinking about it. If your sales haven't been what you wanted them to be this year, why not? Did you really do the work? And don't come at me and go, oh, Jess, I worked 60-hour weeks and I did this and I did that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if you did all of that, why did it not work for you? Be honest with yourself, because I'm always really honest with myself. And I was actually having a good conversation with my friend Janet Murray about this the other day. We were on the phone. I was about 4 glasses of Prosecco down. And Janet, to her credit, was sober, I think, because it was like a Tuesday. And I was just like, oh my God, it's a long week. And we were having this conversation about taking responsibility. And we were saying that as people, we're both very quick to take responsibility. Sometimes the things that aren't even our fault. We're like, oh my God, I should take responsibility for the fact that client hasn't done the work. And if you are like us, don't be, right? Take responsibility only for what you can control, but always be clear on what is your responsibility. So if you haven't made sales this year or the revenue that you wanted, and you think, well, I've worked really hard, and you go back and actually look at your activities and you look at, okay, well, I did lots of busy work, but they weren't necessarily revenue generating activities. It's on you. It sucks, but it is on you. If you did loads of revenue generating activities, and every single day you were doing proactive outreach, and you were emailing your list and selling stuff, and you were asking for referrals, and you were doing business development, all these good things, and it didn't work for you, then you have to dig into, okay, so why did opportunities fall through, right? What happened? Did I ask the right questions? Did I push as much as as I could have done? Was I assertive? Did I take control of a process? Find the bits that didn't work so you can change them. Yeah. We had a guy that I used to work with, nice enough guy. And we used to do this in corporate. We'd sit there and every year we'd look at, how did we do? How could we have done better? And he was actually a good guy. And he made some sales, and, sometimes he'd hit his target, sometimes he wouldn't. But his attitude stank. And we got to the end of one year. He'd worked for the company maybe 18 months. And we got to the end of the year, and, we were pointing out, everybody was saying, this is where I feel like I fell down. This is where I feel like I excelled. And he was like, well, I just can't understand it. I've been showing up. I get here at 7 a.m. every morning, and I leave at 8:30 every evening. And I don't ever take as long a lunch break as anybody else. And I'm always on LinkedIn, and I'm always doing X and Y and Z. But you know what? He was really rude to his clients. And their problem with him was not that he couldn't do the job. It was that his attitude sucked, and they didn't want to help him. Right? Whereas I could go to my clients, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm having, an absolute mare trying to find the best solution for you. Like, what is it that you guys really need? Would you answer some more questions for me? Would you give me some more feedback on why this didn't work out? But he didn't have that. didn't have that relationship, because when he didn't, I'm going to use air quotes again, win, he sacked them off. You know, he had a little tantrum about it. Well, why didn't you take my solution? He wouldn't ask for feedback because he didn't really want to know why they hadn't picked him. He just wanted to sit and kind of stew in it. Needless to say, I don't think he's in sales anymore, but you have to be looking at this, you know, are you really looking at what worked and what didn't? And it goes without saying, like in 2020, do more of the things that worked. If you were amazing at creating, you know, batch creating content that led to you getting loads of leads, do more of that, right? You've nailed it. Woohoo, we love it. It's producing a positive result, so do more. And then look at the things that didn't and go, okay, how can I change that? How can I tweak it? How can I make that process better or work differently? Yeah. Don't just do the same things and expect different outcomes. As we all know, that is the definition of insanity. Thank you, Einstein. The next thing we have to look at is future trends. Now, Gary Vee does this really, really well. If you've ever watched any Gary Vee video, ever, he will tell you about something that you need to be keeping your eye on. A couple of years, it was like Snapchat. I remember laughing at that one. I think now he's like promoting TikTok. He's like, yeah, get on TikTok. Everyone should be on TikTok. Make the use of that younger audience. I'm not entirely sure that the younger generation want to learn how to be salespeople. If they did, maybe I'd get on there and embarrass myself horribly, but I've got no interest in that right now. Whilst I don't think you should jump on every single new trend, I do think that you should be, as the expert in your space, looking at what is coming up. What can you predict that is changing, that is going to be popular, that would make a difference to your clients' lives? Companies that do this really well, so actually MemberVault does this really well. I remember when they first set up their company, and we've actually got an episode on the Smart Leaders Sell show with Mike and Erin, and it's really good. So if you need to know more about MemberVault, go and check it out. But I remember when MemberVault set up, and the thing that they were great at was looking and predicting trends for people who were selling courses. And they were really, really smart to say, yeah, do you know what? The people who are selling courses, they don't just want to know that people can access the course. They want to know the stats, right? How many people are using which modules? How can we be more in contact with people in the course? Like, can they ask questions inside the software? And also, how can they sell more of the course? You know, MemberVault is a great thing on the dashboard where they show you who your hot leads are. If somebody has set up a free resource account with you, and then they've gone and they've looked at paid products a number of times, it'll tell you. So you can actually go to those people and say, hey, I've noticed that you've looked at podcasting that pays 5 times in the last week. Do you got any questions? Yeah. They are phenomenal at that. They're really, really good. This year, they've actually focused a lot on design. They looked at, okay, well, what are the upcoming predictions that we can make in terms of design and user experience? And they're changing that at the moment, and it's looking awesome. But what can you do? What can you predict? For me, I've made a ton of predictions this year. One was that Brexit was going to impact businesses massively. If you listen to any of the podcast episodes from last year, they all talk about, look, the industry is going this way. This is what's happening. And sure enough, I'm like the oracle, which makes me happy. Or in some cases doesn't actually make me happy. But the other predictions I've made are around people needing to add a corporate revenue stream. And sure enough, you know, a lot of my audience now are attending Converting Corporates. They are buying the business development bootcamp course that we're selling. People are recognizing they need to go and do this. It needs to happen because you need to future-proof. You need to diversify your income streams, right? So what are the future trends you can predict? Please predict stuff you're qualified to predict. You know, it comes back to that integrity qualification piece. Don't just go, oh, well, Jess says that you should sell to corporate, so I'm just going to say that. Because A, it won't make you money because you won't be able to deliver that or sell it. And B, you might not believe that. You've got to predict what you believe. So if you are in email marketing and you think the next big thing is going to be like backing up your emails with text messages, great. Make that prediction and then tell your audience about it, right? If you are somebody who believes that authenticity and confidence have been really overused words in 2019, and that actually in 2020 it's going to be about clear demonstration and tangible expectations of those things, talk about it. Your audience needs to know. Then we have to manage risk. What holes do we currently have in our business? if one more business owner comes to me in 2020 and says, Jess, I don't have terms and conditions, you cannot run a business like that. You can't. You know, I'm really, really tired of people saying, oh, well, you know, I've bought your course, and I had this relatively recently, and I don't really get it that often, but when I do, I'm quite serious about how I handle things. So I had two things recently. One was somebody had decided to take a spot on a program and didn't want to pay for the rest. Fine. Well, actually not fine, because when you take a spot on a program and you sign on that sales page and you sign that contract that says, in taking this spot and paying this payment on, and you know, this initial payment, I intend to take this spot, and if I don't take this spot, I commit to being financially responsible to actually seeing out this commitment. That means that unfortunately you don't just get to be like, well, I can't be asked to do the work, so no, that's not cool. Doesn't fly, right? Business owners every day are losing money because they're taking people into programs, and then that person's going, well, I just don't want to pay you this month. Yeah, that's not how it works. Have terms and conditions and enforce them, please. It doesn't make you a bad person to say, well, actually, do you know what? As a business owner, unfortunately, my business also depends on you adhering to your financial commitments. So actually, it doesn't really matter that you can't be bothered to do it. What matters is that you're contractually obliged. You signed that as a legally consenting adult, and you need to do that, right? I also had somebody recently, and this doesn't take into account emergencies, right? Let's just be clear. Like, you don't have to be hard-hearted about it. If somebody has a really awful personal situation, you can absolutely say, hey, look, I'm choosing to release you from your contract. That is totally fine. And I've done that. But if it's somebody who just can't be bothered, you know, I don't buy into this whole, oh yeah, but it's about energy. No, they signed a contract. You know, if you buy a house, your mortgage advisor doesn't say, oh, well, you don't want to live there anymore. Oh, well, that's okay. Just don't pay the mortgage on it. Like, just, you know, just stop paying for it until you find somewhere else. That's cool. Nope. The other thing interesting that I've had this year is people, I'm going to be nice about it and say, strongly repurposing my content. I don't like the word copy very much, but, you know, here's the thing. Somebody copies my content, I send them a cease and desist. Again, doesn't make me a bad person, but I will protect my business at any cost. Okay? You've got to manage risk in your business. Where are the holes? Is it legally? Is it financially? You know, are you using an accountant? Are you, you know, do you have bookkeeping software? Do you actually know what your profit and loss looks like? Do you have other holes in your business that require you to manage risk? Yeah, this is important because, you know, it can be different in every business. It could be that you, if you're a product-based business, perhaps you've got a really good deal with a supplier, but what if that supplier goes bust? Like, do you have any way of diversifying or mitigating that risk? Yeah, it could be systems, processes. Have you made good team hires? Have you made bad team hires, in which case they need to go, right? So please look at your risks in your business. The only way you can future-proof it is to know what you're dealing with. Yeah. And then finally, we have to look at our customers and learn from them and innovate from that point. Okay. So what I mean by that is that customers vote with their wallet. Yeah. It's always interesting to me that companies like Blockbuster ever went bust. Because the reality was, if they'd just stepped back and looked at how their customers were behaving, they'd have noticed, well, they don't want to have to come to a video shop and pay a late fee because they inevitably can't be bothered to take the video back the day later that it should have been. You know, they don't want to come out in the rain. They don't want to have to look at all of these videos in a store and go down there and hope to get one video, but it's not available, so you can't pick it up, and blah, 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 blah. Or you pick up the video and it doesn't work, so you have to take it back and get a new copy. And if they'd have just stepped back and looked at their customers' behaviors and their customers who were saying, okay, well, perhaps we'll just buy our own DVDs. You know, we don't want to go out. We want to be at home. If they'd have looked at that Love Film model, because that's who came next. Everyone talks about Netflix, but Love Film were the first people to kind of recognize that humans inherently were lazy. They didn't want to go out and get films. So they posted them to them. They're like, oh, here you go. Have it in the post, no drama. The element of love film failing was ultimately that they didn't pick up on streaming soon enough, and people inevitably still had to go back to the post box to take the video back and or the DVD back. But they were the ones who really changed that industry. They were the ones who, Blockbuster were like, oh, well, we're not worried about that. People love coming in store, they love buying their popcorn or their hot dog or whatever it is here and recreating that cinema experience at home. But people didn't. They wanted to recreate the cinema experience at home, but they wanted the film to be the easiest part about it. Yeah. If they'd have stepped back and looked at customer behavior, they would have known that. So what are your customers telling you? Perhaps it's that you've previously held a lot of events and actually now you're finding it really difficult to fill them. So do you need to change that model? Do you need to make something that's higher ticket but more intimate? Perhaps you've never struggled to fill events and actually you get more people asking you to put on like a virtual attendance because you've grown a substantial audience across the globe, and maybe you add that next time. Maybe you look at your customer behavior entirely and go, oh, well, actually it's really difficult for my customer to attend full events full stop, so I'm just going to do virtual events. Yeah. Look at your customers' behavior and innovate from that point. Don't be afraid to innovate. I think there's two sides to this, isn't there? There's don't be afraid to innovate, but there's also don't innovate for the sake of innovation. Yeah, don't just do it because you feel like you have to. Innovate only if there's something that's going to make your customer's life easier, more convenient, or get them a better result. For me, this year, innovation was about strongly taking on this piece around selling to corporates. I truly believe it's not necessarily innovative in that nobody's ever done it before, because obviously people have, people do, people sell that. But taking it to the scale that I will be in 2020 is innovation. It's taking an audience that in the online space have been told selling to corporates is not a good thing. It's boring and it's terrible. And if you do it, you're not a real online business owner. And it's innovative for them. It will make their lives easier, more convenient, and get them better results. Yeah. So look at your customers' behavior and let that help you influence your innovation decisions. Okay. So I know that this episode has been quite long, and I know that it's given you lots of different things to think about. And I know that in a way, sometimes that's a bit dull, and B, it feels like it's negative, but it's not. I just want you to consider these things so that you can really make 2020 the best year for you. It's not about harping on about the negative. It's not about looking at, oh, what could I have done better? How much more can I blame myself? How big a stick can I beat myself with? It's really about ask yourself these questions, smart questions, so that then you can move forward. And in the next couple of episodes in this Friday series, we're going to be talking about content mediums, about the trends there, about what's going to go on there, what you should be doing there, and sales strategy, so that once these questions are nailed for you, once they are answered for you, you have a clear idea of what you can do to really make next year the best ever. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, obviously get in touch. Let me know on Instagram or by leaving a review on iTunes. I always appreciate those. And if you do have any questions about the episode, then drop into my inbox, jessica@jessicalorimer.com. It's always really good to know whether you're enjoying episodes or whether you have any additional questions. I will see you on Monday.